Hi there, Bill Hitchcock. Certainly hope everything's going great for you. Well, here we are in mid-March. Lots of things going on, lots of fishing activity going on. But I did want to bring up this during the Marine Fisheries Commission meeting that just happened on March 12th and 13th. A very interesting topic was brought up. It was brought up by one of the commissioners and kind of bypassed everybody because it was a question. It wasn't a presentation, it was a question. We're going to get into that, but before we do, I want to bring this up to you that starting March 15th, places like Atlantic Beach, boom, you can't drive on the beach anymore. Places like Atlantic Beach, you can only drive during the wintertime, so no longer can you drive in Atlantic Beach. There are other areas along the coast of North Carolina you can't drive at all, but places like Ocracoke and Hatteras Island and all, you can't drive on the beach. There are ramps, but what I would highly recommend anybody do right now is to find out when your favorite beach is closing. Maybe it's Wrightsville Beach, that's closed all the time. Some other place is going to be closing in April. Call them up, find out what's going on, get up with your National Park Service, find out what their rules and regulations are for driving on the beach, ramps and all that kind of stuff. So we are in that transitional time of year where you can't drive everywhere, anywhere along the coast of North Carolina. So please double check it. Don't want you to get a ticket. Now, as I made comment during the Marine Fisheries Commission meeting, which was held in Kitty Hawk this past March 12th and 13th, you may recall it was scheduled for February, but that little old white stuff called snow came and kind of mimicked everything, and so they had to reschedule it. A very interesting thing that I haven't heard anybody talk about is one of the new commissioners. His name is Willie Kloss. Jr. He's from the Triangle area. He had a question. He wanted to know, basically, and Willie, by the way, if that name sounds familiar, he's part and parcel of the CCA lawsuit against the state. Let me show you that to you. You may recall the Coastal Conservation Association filed a lawsuit in 2020 that alleges that the state of North Carolina has breached its public trust duty by failing to manage coastal fisheries resources, leading to overfishing and habitat destruction. Willie was one of the signatories on that. We just showed that to you. So, and I know that he recreational fishes. He has an at-large seat with the Marine Fisheries Commission, so he's not representing recreational, he's not representing commercial, but he had a question in the midst of the meeting. Let's roll that right now.
Yes, sir, Will.
Being new, my question is, do we ever get involved in economic impact issues and how to, I guess, minimize the damage to people's lifestyles?
And I think everything we vote on, every time we vote on something, we're voting on economic impacts. You know, no matter what it is.
So do we ever attempt to buffer any of that any kind of way, you know, through our legislature or whatever, just trying to get somebody to do something to help people?
Very interesting question that Willie brought up. He said, being new, my question is, do we ever get involved in economic impact issues and how to, I guess, minimize the damage to people's lifestyles? Long story short, if the state's going to regulate someone out of their business, their livelihood, should the state be responsible for that livelihood to compensate? And should the Marine Fisheries Commission factor that in when they are determining rules and regulations? So now it's taken a step further. It's no longer managing fish stocks. It's now managing people, income, economic impacts. And the thing that I have brought up over the past couple of weeks, that the Marine Fisheries Commission, while they're trying to determine and manage fish stocks, water quality is not in their purview. Interesting. Well, let's see what the response was to Willie when he asked that question.
So one of the tools in your toolbox is, and this comes straight out of your F&P statutes, is that you have the ability to make the effective date of these rules further out in the future. And it's especially where you're talking about rendering your gear useless. Now that's completely within your prerogative to determine what is, rendering a gear useless in terms of its economic value. But when you're winding down a fishery, a particular fishery, at least in this context, not in terms of the least bottom or in other states, but you can decide to have the rule implemented up to really 2 years. And that gives a chance for folks to wind it down.
To adjust.
Yeah.
And so with that, the division has done it over 3 years, which is, is even longer than what our purview is, so.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
In 2 years, I said up to 2 years, I
Yeah.
shouldn't say it that way. That's what the statute says is 2 years.
So the division did look at that when they were doing this.
So the basic response from the Marine Fishery, I think his name was Mr. Reynolds, to Mr. Klaus, Willie Klaus Jr., was that the state says you got it 2 years, but the Division of Marine Fisheries has been giving 3 years whenever a fishery is being phased out. All right, that doesn't really answer the question now, does it? This is what Willie asked as a follow-up.
But our basic position, I guess, is sustainability, but of the environment, the fish, but not, we have no economic,
No, you
I'm
do.
trying to make it, put it in plain, we have no economic concern whatsoever. Is that where we're coming from?
Again, a good point. So the Marine Fisheries Commission has no economic variable that they weigh? Here's the response.
That's not
Okay.
that's not true. All your
Because
rules-
I don't,
Right.
well, I don't see us, I don't hear us trying to deal with that
So-
at all.
Right,
But-
so I don't know, so the commission doesn't have funds to, when we talk about winding down a particular industry, I always think of tobacco, right? We don't have the Golden Leaf Fund to pay farmers to transition out of tobacco growing.
So it was brought up by Willie about a golden leaf fund, which was something primarily targeting the tobacco industry. And exactly what that is, the Golden Leaf Foundation is a nonprofit organization based in North Carolina that focuses on supporting the economic development of tobacco-dependent communities, especially after the decline of the tobacco industry. It was established in 1999. So Willie's asking, hey, is there something like this for fishermen? If we're phasing them out, shouldn't we, kind of help with the transition? This is the response.
That's not something that this commission has, but this commission does look at and has to look at economic impacts for every rule that you adopt. You have to do a regulatory impact analysis, and depending on the significance of the economic impacts, you might also have to do a fiscal note looking at what's called a significant economic impact if it has an aggregate value of a certain dollar amount. So you do actually look at those things, and it's in your material as well. And that's one of the things that I think was taken into consideration here when the division says, here's the amount of money we're spending to monitor this fishery versus how much the fishery is worth. Now, I think a lot of folks would debate which of those values are more important. Anybody would do that. At the same time, you're going to have to put on, in terms of the ledger, economic impact, is benefits to the resource, benefits to the habitat, and things like that. You do also take those into consideration.
I don't want to say he sidestepped the issue. He did bring up another issue when it came to economics. He was talking the cost of doing business, in essence. If the study has to be done on a fish species, on a stock, how much is that study going to be? But that's not what Willie was asking about as he follows up with this.
Not today, but maybe, in the long term, it seems to me that, is it reasonable for us to try to find a way to communicate with our state leadership on the impact of our decisions on families and find some remedies for minimizing the economic impact somewhat, not fully, but like what you said, Golden Leaf. For example, I guess I think about the people that, that speak to us out here.
Mm-hmm.
having somebody to speak for them, which might be us. I'm just talking. I don't know, I know this is a long-term, could be a long-term thing, but could that be on our list of objectives?
Yeah, and we can have, Mr. Chairman, we can have, I'm happy to talk to you further about that, what that looks like in terms of what you're doing now. I don't think anybody, in the years that I've been representing this commission, I've not heard anybody say that they're wholly disinterested in the impacts and certainly economic opportunities for fishermen, for families, for products being sold in North Carolina, food production. All of those things are things that you are statutorily required to take a look at, and you do have that. But in terms of anything specific, what you might be asking the legislature for, something like that, I would be more than happy to talk with you about that. And I know that Director Rawls would be more than happy to talk to you about an increase in budgets for DMF across the board. So maybe we can have one big conversation all at one time about that.
Well, I mean, it would make it easier on me to say no, about something that shuts people's livelihood down.
Sure, but economic impact is something that you do absolutely consider and look at. Yeah.
By the way, I forgot to make mention that I did some audio sweetening. No, I didn't edit content. I did some audio sweetening, and I also put underneath there the transcript of what they were saying, because this was recorded by the Division of Marine Fisheries or Marine Fisheries Commission. Audio is not always good. There's one camera, as you can, well, over here, one camera with audio around, and sometimes it's very difficult, so I put that stuff up there. So it's a very interesting question, and I'd like to know what your response is. If we're going to put somebody out of business, should we help them in the transition, like what we did in the Golden Leaf Foundation with the tobacco industry? Should they're helped? They're continuing to be helped. It's been 25 plus years that they're being helped. Should we do that with the commercial fishing industry? Something else you may recall, about a month or so ago, I made a comment about how I like the methodology of the North Carolina Coastal Federation. They're a conservation organization, and basically what they do, not all of the time, but basically what they do, if there's a thing, an area, an island, tracts of land, marsh, whatever, that needs protection, do they go storming the castle up in Raleigh and try to protest and file lawsuits and all that? Nope. They just buy it. That's what the Coastal Federation does. I like that tactic. So if I like that tactic, maybe I should like this tactic too. Again, I appreciate Willie Kloss Jr., who is a recreational fisherman who has an at-large seat, who's part and parcel of the CCA lawsuit against the state. But I appreciate him bringing up, hey, if we're going to regulate people out of business, shouldn't we help them along the way? Love to hear what you have to say. Until then, I'm Bill Hitchcock. See ya.
Post your questions, comments, and concerns here on YouTube, or email them directly to Bill Hitchcock at this address.